Welcome to another episode of Alpha Intuition Podcast, where I help you to become the CEO of your life by creating, eliminating, and organizing energy, frequency, and vibration so that you stay in alignment. I'm your host, Keisha L. Blair, certified extreme execution coach, skill trades champion, and technical trainer. Alpha Intuition family, I am kicking off a new series today, and it's called Leadership Lessons from the Field. This season, I'm just going to take it back to the beginning. I'm talking about boots on the ground, hands on the tools, and lessons that I've learned in real time. And I'm just going to be highlighting different people in the field that are familiar with making those tough calls, managing people and projects under pressure. And today, I couldn't think of a better person to help me kick off this new season. He is the president of Consolidated Building Systems in San Diego, where he leads with integrity, purpose, and passion. And he has hands-on experience in the world of construction and project management with over 30 years in the industry. He's managed people under pressure and million-dollar projects without losing his focus on his people-first leadership. He's also the co-host of Lead with Coffee podcast. He and his wife, Sarah, they share that interest, and they are both down to earth with conversations. Those conversations are about leadership, marriage, and the power of showing up with intention in business and in life. He is a respected voice for the facility management space and a longtime member of the IFMA Association. And he's also a leader who knows what it means to build from the ground up, literally and professionally, from the job sites to the leadership rooms. He leads with impact, humility, and a heart for growth. Alpha Intuition family, it is my pleasure. Please help me welcome Mr. David Suter. David, hello. How are you?
Man, what an intro. That was awesome. Thank you.
You are so welcome. I'm so happy that you are here with me today. Thank you so much.
Excited to be here, excited to have this conversation, and excited to be connected to you.
Yes, thank you. So just to let you guys know, David and I, we're in one of E.T. Dr. Eric Thomas's, what we call it, a mastermind group. It's the Inner Circle, and it's called UOU. So that's how we met. And just through our conversations, I thought this guy right here is phenomenal. And then he lives in the beautiful city of San Diego, I wouldn't even say in the state, in the country of California, because California is his own country. But just knowing that I had that California connection with him, like, oh my gosh. And then just so many things, so many different conversations we've had. Yeah, this is going to be a phenomenal talk. So you guys are in for a treat today.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, we've been in the business probably about the same amount of time. We're about the same age. So we similar paths of coming up in the industry.
What's your 25 too? What? No.
All right. I celebrated the second anniversary of my 26th birthday last year.
That's right. Yes. I love it. You know, it's a good thing we know math so well. All right. Well, awesome. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it. Like I said, I'm starting off this new season called Leadership Lessons I've Learned in the Field. I know we follow each other online. You've seen some of these things that I put out there, but just kind of tell me about your journey and what started you and your love for construction, and especially leadership.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back into the 90s and literally out of high school. And first thing I will say, I do not have a degree. I did not go to college. I went to community college and took several classes, but the college pathway just was not hitting for me. I was not interested. And so at age 19, I got a job in facilities management. And with this company here in San Diego, and it was a big company. It was about 800 employees locally, and we had 60 field offices around the nation. But I just, learned from the ground up, literally, starting the day of taking out the recycling and just doing small repairs. And then within a couple of years, we were traveling every 2 weeks to a different city for a different office to do a move or a change or, open an office, close an office. And I just learned so much in the field. And so 7 years later, I joined CBSI, which is a company that my father had started back in 1986. And so the company I was working for got bought out, and they were starting to get rid of people. And, the big corporation was coming in, the heavy management, and it was time to make a change. And so I decided to join CBSI in 1998, and it's 2025, and been the president for about the last 8 years.
Wow. So when you started, so you started at like an entry level and then worked your way up to where you are now?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I at that point I had, 7 years of experience of project management, and what CBSI does is we manage projects for companies, municipalities, public works, and
Mm.
corporations. And so I started out, just managing some small projects, and it just worked its way, and spent a lot of time in the higher education field. Probably the last 20 years or so have been in higher education. So worked my way up from the bottom all the way to being president now.
Mm. So I've been on this assignment to talk to kids about the benefit of the skilled trades. So and I tell them I started out at $6.50 an hour.
Oh yeah.
I make a lot more than that now, but I started out. So where did you start as far as pay? You don't have to tell where you are now, but where did you start out as far as pay?
To be honest with you, whatever minimum wage was in San Diego back in
Mm.
1992, 1991 is what I started with. And I would say it was probably in the same realm, under $10 an hour.
Yeah, probably like what, 725 back, because we know it may have been like was it 425? Because I remember for a while it was 425, and then we got this huge $3 raise.
I don't know if it was that low. I do know it was that low when I was working in high school, but I
Yeah.
think by the time I graduated, it had bumped up to at least $7 an hour. Yeah.
Man, just imagine, there's couldn't even survive off seven. You can't even buy coffee with $7 right now.
No, my gosh, no. And having three young
Mm.
sons, 18, 19, and 22, them, going to school and figuring out how would they even move out and live on their own with the wages these days and the cost of everything, especially in California. It's crazy.
No, it's so super crazy out there. Like I said, I moved back to Memphis about 2 years ago, 2020, about 2 years ago, I moved back to Memphis, and I instantly got a pay raise just because I changed states, because everything is just so
Yeah.
high out there in California. It's and people don't realize it because you're in it. After a while, it just becomes the normal. You just get used to it. But yeah, the cost of living out there is excruciatingly high for sometimes no reason. All the way down
But
to
it's
gas.
wonderful.
Like, why am I paying like $10 a gallon for gas?
Yeah, yeah, but it's beautiful. You can go to the mountains, to the beach, and to the desert within a
All in
couple
the same day. Exactly. Go to the mountains, the desert, and the beach all in the same day. Yes. And I've actually done that before. And then, depending on, because I was like, where was I at? I was in Riverside County. So I can go to the beach. I can go to to Los Angeles, to San Diego, Palm Desert, and I can go to Vegas. It's like all right there.
It's all right there. Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess you get what you pay for. So Memphis, I'm not doing anything but going to Arkansas, Tennessee, or Mississippi. A little bit different. Oh man. So let me ask you this question, David. So when you think about how you have to, now you're running a company, and you think about just all the different teams, the different people that you have to manage, how do you stay grounded in those moments, and how do you lead with integrity?
It has been a journey, and this is something, and I'll take it back to around 2008, 2009, where everything kind of crumbled. I was affected by that, but in a different way. And the reason I say that is when I joined CBSI, one of my first projects was in higher education. And I ended up working at this college district for almost 10 years, working on their bond programs, building buildings, and learning a ton of new construction, ground up, and infrastructure. But I had helped them hire a director of facilities for the first time. That it was one college district, two campuses. There was the big campus and the small campus, and I helped them build up the small campus to be its own, and helped them hire a director of facilities. And within 6 months, they said, "Okay, thank you for helping us. Now we don't need you anymore."
Mm.
And so at that point, what I knew about management and leadership is I knew what it was like to be a manager. I was a project manager. I managed people from a manager aspect. I knew nothing about good leadership. I didn't. I wasn't exposed to it. And so when that happened in 2008, at the end of 2008, 2009, I really spent that year back in the office, which I hadn't been in for 10 years, and trying to figure out what leadership was all about and how to lead people better. And then I also realized that I had been following my father, who I worked for at this point, known him all my life, jokingly. But he had a certain way of doing things. And it was around that point that I realized that I can get to the same goal, but I don't have to take the same steps he was taking, because the way he was taking it was frustrating to me. It was always a battle, or not a battle. It was always a struggle to get to the same point that he wanted to get to using the steps he was using. And so not only was I stepping out on my own thinking I can do this better, but then I started reading books. At the time, there wasn't audiobooks as much. It was, reading physical books. So, obviously John Maxwell was huge. And then what's the gentleman's name? Multiple books, a lot of the John Maxwells, and then we were exposed to Art Barter, who at the time had the Servant Leadership Institute here in San Diego, and he was holding conferences, and he had the John Maxwells and other people like that coming to those events. And so over the next couple of years, Sarah and I started attending these events, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's this whole thing on leadership that I have know nothing about. I came from a corporation, and now we're serving corporations, but I knew nothing about what true leadership was. And that's really where my journey started. Like, oh my gosh, turn the triangle upside down. And now I'm spending my time learning how to focus on the people and not for the people serving me every day. And, that's how I've been trained. And it's so wrong. It's just so wrong of a thought process. So over this last 15 years, I've really spent my time learning from the greats, how to lead better, how to, spend time with your people and build them up, ask them what tools they need to be successful, instead of coming in every day and expecting, okay, what'd you get done today? And, why not? And going through the whole thing. So in a nutshell, that's kind of been my journey. And every year it's, I'm turned on to something new, and I can learn something else. And it wasn't on, and I'll keep going on this a little bit, but it was not until 2020, COVID hit, that I even found out who ET was. I had never heard of him before. And then if you're familiar with Rachel Hollis, so she did this, she did an event, her and her former husband did an event, and they had all these speakers on there, and ET was one of them. I'm like, who is this guy? I don't know what it is, but there's something about this guy I like. And that's when I started following him and getting closer and closer of like, okay, he's got the spiritual down. He's talking about how do you maximize your life? How do you, make yourself better? How do you make the people around you better? And so it just continued getting closer and closer and following more and more. And, here I am in 2025, joining the mastermind finally and going, okay, this is where it's at. I'm home now. I finally found my people that have the same, that are like-minded, that want the same thing and are interested in not only making your own life better, but making life better for those around you. So that's my journey in a nutshell. How's that?
I love it. I love it. I love it. So as I'm listening, it's like there's so many things that came to mind, because first of all, when you're on a construction site, you have your hierarchy of people, but they don't really talk to you about how to lead those people. They talk to you. The mission is to get the project completed and move on to the next one. They don't talk about how to invest in the people. So that's something that I know that there's a disconnect there. Yeah. And then as far as like when I met ET, I met his voice before I ever even knew his name, because I was just listening. When I got into leadership, as far as for maintenance, it was basically in 2016. And it was like, I started just listening to different people online, and I would hear the same voice over and over again that would encourage me to get out of the bed in the morning, whether I wanted to or not. Didn't even know his name. And then it's something I saw, I think one of the things I was listening to, it said his name. So I went and looked him up. So by 2019, when I moved back to California, kind of, right before COVID hit, I found, and I remember when he hit 1 million subscribers, and I was like, okay, this guy, is somebody different. And people are following him like this, and then just listening to him and following him. And then when COVID hit, it was like, there wasn't really a lot of people out there that were encouraging you to still pour into yourself from a spiritual aspect. So that's when I really, met ET and knew his name. And I was actually going to go to, I think it was the 120 conference in Los Angeles, because I was actually living in Northern California up in Dublin at that time, close to Oakland. And then they canceled it because of COVID. And I was like, oh, I'm never going to get a chance to meet this guy. So 3 years later, 2023 of October 2023, I went to, I met him through Next Level Speakers Academy. something else was one of his programs. He has a lot of stuff under his tree, but that's where I met him in person. And then, went into extreme execution. And when he says extreme, it's extreme because every day means every day, like one of our mentors, Brandon, says. But, there's no room for deviation. And like you said, it is a tribe, it's a culture, it's a community. And I'm so thankful that I chose to be a part of this because it's really helped me to be more rounded and to grow into the leader that I am today. But it all started with me just wanting to know more about leadership, lessons that I did not learn out there in the field.
Yeah. And it was interesting. So going back into when I was at that college district for 10 years straight, I was going from the boardroom or the president's cabinet meeting out into the field. And there was this disconnect, as you were talking about there. And, I always made it a point to, I had to speak at president's cabinet to give a report on the construction, but to go back in the field while we're building these buildings and talking to the electrician, talking to the plumber, and honestly, just sitting there, watching them and asking them questions. How do you do what you do? Because, you can tell when you walk into a building if someone really knows what they're doing or if they don't, just by how clean they are, how messy it is, those conduit lines, And so I would sit there and get to know these guys in the crews because they had this they were specialists and they were experts in the work that they did. And I'm like, well, I want to learn from the best at this level. So when I'm doing a home project or I'm doing the next project, I know what to look for and why. And so I think bridging that gap between the boardroom and the field was huge on my growth because I saw it on both sides. And I saw how some people in the boardroom or in the president's cabinet were looking down upon the contractors. And so while I was speaking in there, and I would say the beauty of the college that I was at is that the president and her cabinet was 80% female. And I will have to say that growing in my journey, when I out of high school, my direct boss, the facility manager, and then the director of operations and admin services were all women. So I'm used to working for women, and I know that we've talked about this and Sarah has dealt with this, what it's like to be a female in the field, and it's not fair and it's ridiculous. And I never understood it because I was so used to working for strong, confident women. And, one of the things we talk about is that, and I know that we were going to talk about this later, but I think this is relevant.
Let's do it.
Yeah, because if you're a strong, confident man, you are respected. But if you're a strong, confident woman, you're almost looked down on, like you got an attitude or something. And I always had a hard time understanding that. And then I would see how other people reacted, and I'm like, that's just not right. And part of my problem and part of my learning and growth was, stepping out and saying something. I'm like, what are you trying to get at? And what we learned, and Sarah has been really, really good at this, is whether it's another female leader that's hired that's intimidated or it's a man, it's usually because they are intimidated.
Yes.
And they have the power, so they use that bullying to try to throw their power around. And it's like, man, just you see the insecurities of people at the top when there are other strong leaders, different races, different ethnicities, different genders that are coming up that are strong and confident. And that was one of the things I'm like, we got to bridge this gap because this is stupid.
Yeah. And like you said, and we're just going to go ahead and talk about it because we call that the good old boy network, because it's like sometimes they use the familiarity that they have with others to try to keep you at a lower level. I'm on the construction sites as an electrician, and sometimes I have been the only woman of color, the only person of color. And yes, I get treated different. It's almost like I feel like I have to know twice as much at any given moment just to get half the respect. Yeah. And it's unfortunate that, that still exists. It has gotten better. Like I said, I started back over 30 years ago, but it has gotten a lot better. It's more than just even on the construction side. It's in the boardrooms as well. It's in the corporations. It's still there because when you have someone, they feel intimidated by you because of what depending on how they may have gotten their job. I put in a lot of hard work for mine. They may have gotten it because they knew somebody. Now there becomes this intimidation factor because I know what I'm doing and they're just guessing at it. And then they can use that to say, hey, whatever the reason may be, this person may not work out. And because of the buddy system, the good old boy network, I may lose my position, or I may get demoted or whatever, or moved around simply because of what I know. And of course, that's not fair, but we just deal with it. And I know we talked about this. You told me that even just from your aspect, you've experienced that too, just when you were younger, just the way you used to dress or how you used to show up.
Yeah.
Discriminate against you as well. So it's not just related to people of color or just to women. It's just about, like I say, just that influence that people have. And, it's because of what people can still be intimidated by you.
Yeah. And then I'll jump back real quick, because back in the 90s when we were traveling around, I'm in my early 20s. I'm a knucklehead. My hair's halfway down my back. I got earrings. I got, goatee, facial hair, the whole thing.
Oh boy, I can even imagine.
Oh yeah. There's not, fortunately, digital cameras and all those things weren't a thing in the early 90s. So there's not much that has captured that part of my life.
Lord.
But we would travel to, any given town. We'll say Memphis. We actually were in Nashville, but Nashville, Memphis. We would travel there. I'd be talking on the phone with the office manager saying, "Hey, we're coming." Again, there's no Skype, there's no nothing back then. It's just phone calls and emails. And so we would be planning this move or this project at their site, and I'd be talking to them for months leading up to it. And I'd be traveling with our IT guy, who was a black gentleman, always dressed very, very, very nice. And here I am in my grunge clothes, going to these sites, knowing nothing about what leadership was and how I should be presenting myself. And then a couple other people that were older than me. And when we traveled, I was always younger by like 15 years. And so I had to have the plan together. I was leading the project, and we'd walk into this office, and his name was Michael, the IT guy. And they would always turn to him directly because he was the most well-kept, dressed up guy. And he'd always have to defer back to me. And, it wasn't until probably a couple years into that I'm like, all right, I got to get my act together. I got to show up a little bit better. But it was always just the way I looked. And, that's normal look these days, but that's just the way I looked, was always looked away like that can't be the leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just from my angle, I've experienced it to where just being a woman on a construction site, and maybe I'm the foreman or the journeyman, and it's like they'll always go to my apprentice in the room and start asking him questions, and he's like, I don't know, go ask my foreman. Well, where is he at? Well, she's over there,
Right.
Yeah, it's just all about perception. And there's nothing we can do about the way people perceive things, but I think it's all about in how we respond to it. And I know, as we talked about, just some of the leadership lessons that I've learned in the field is just that how to respond to certain things, because you can always let something get under your skin, but you can't control how somebody else thinks or somebody else feels. But you do have total 100% control about how you respond to it.
That's right. And ET talks about get out of your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and move with confidence. And what I've seen in the past is, whether it's Sarah or Sandy, who was working for us for a long time, who was in the field managing the construction projects for us, is that the confidence and the knowledge usually won them over after they realized that, this person, this female leader knows something, and I can be in line. But it was always in the beginning, it was never given the same amount of respect as the man in the field. And yeah, that always drove me crazy.
Well, I'm going to say this, and I have to admit that even as a woman, when I come across another woman in the field, I kind of have the same thing. It's like we don't even think about it because consciously we just think that, okay, this should be a role that a man should have. And even as a woman, I've had those thoughts, and I have to tell myself, oh, this person, she knows what she's talking about. But just like people count me out, I count other people out too. So it's not just that men do it. Sometimes as women, we do it as well. Because I know I've come across other women who have looked down on me or didn't assume that I wasn't in the role that I was supposed to be in. It's like, well, no, I'm actually the project manager. I'm actually the manager or the foreman here. So yeah, it just happens because we're just conditioned to think that certain roles should be held by men.
Yeah. And, going back to the college districts, we saw that where the president was female, and actually going up a little higher, the vice chancellor was female of the overall district. And Sarah, so just to let you know, Sarah worked, that's where I met Sarah. She worked at this college district. So but as she was moving up in her role and her responsibilities, there was this one lady that always was intimidated but held that power, and it took a long time to finally break past that. But Sarah, for years it was just trying to be intimidated, using the intimidation to get to her. And Sarah's like, I know who I am. I came in here with an MBA. I know who I am. I'm confident in my abilities and how I lead and, how I treat other people. So, some days were worse than others, but it was always like reminding herself of who she is and where she belongs. And but it's not easy. It is not easy by any realm. Even if you have that confidence going to work every day and dealing with that, it's not easy.
I'm going to say this. What's ironic is that I've actually felt that way, but it's like it says most of the time in a male dominated environment where I'm the only woman, or I may take over a team to where they may not be used to working for a woman. And my saying to them was always is that, I don't have to get used to you. You have to get used to me, because I've been working around men for 30 years. It's like, you're the one who has not been working. You've never worked around a woman before. So, they're the ones that have to deal with that challenge. But me knowing that as a leader, I understand that and I give them grace. So, and I, make sure that I ask questions and I make it okay for them to ask me questions, because they've never been in this space. And sometimes people just tend to dislike the things that they don't understand. So I give them an opportunity to understand who I am. So therefore we can connect on a different level.
Absolutely. And again, as you said, it's how not how we react. React is bad. How we respond.
There you go.
Take those thoughts in and respond in just a confident and positive way, and showing them grace when they don't deserve it is another piece that goes a long way.
Yeah. And let me tell you this. So being an extreme execution coach, that is something that I totally 100% had to learn. I thought that I was a good leader, and I was an okay leader, to where once I found the flight assessment and started leaning into the different personalities, I thought about all the moments that I had in my past, like, oh, this is why this person was this way. And it wasn't that they didn't know what they were doing, is that I didn't know who they were as a person. And I was expecting them to understand me, and I wasn't trying to understand them. So one thing that I can hands down say that the flight assessment, that's rooted in the DISC, which is by John Maxwell, right, is that it helped me to connect with people on a different level. And especially as an entrepreneur, being in the entrepreneurial space, connecting with someone and communicating with someone is totally different when you're in the corporate space. You have to really know how to win friends and influence people. So that's Dale Carnegie, right? So I had to learn all, and you talk about reading books. I read books like crazy now. And I love the audio versions because, sometimes I'm the type of reader where I have the ADHD. I'll get to the bottom of the page and don't even remember what I read. So the audio book, I can rewind it, right? So, just leaning into these different books that are out there on leadership, and all the hundreds of books that are out there by John Maxwell. They're really, really good reads.
And another one that we did as a team a few years back with Patrick Lencioni, and he's got, of course, The Working Genius. The Working Genius is really good, and it's an assessment, and it's your working style. So there's 6 working styles, and everyone's got 2 that are prominent, 2 that you're okay with, and 2 you hate to do. And going through this process, you realize if some of the work you're doing on a daily basis is part of the things that you really don't like, and you can pull yourself out of there. Like, I can do that for a little while, but I can't do that all day. And so as a team, you can, reassign what people are working on to get them working more in their genius and less in their working competency. And then the other one is your, I forget the other one. But anyways, they're really good. And this assessment.
What's the name of the book again?
The Working Genius.
The Working Genius. Okay.
So Patrick Lencioni's been around for a long time too. He's got a lot of books that have changed the way people manage, and he was one of the ones that we've been following for a long time too. But when they came up with this book, it's probably been 3 years now. It's really changed how people look at their businesses and how they're run. So it's a fun tool, and it's the same thing. It's a 10-15 minute assessment. And then you realize what your working genius is. Like, my working genius is invention and tenacity. So I can come up with ideas and I can execute them. Whereas Sarah's is discernment and enablement. So I'm looking forward to meeting Dee Dee, because Dee Dee and Sarah, in my mind, are very similar, like very high on the discernment level. Just
Mm-hmm.
see a situation or a person and be able to understand what's really going on without even thinking about it. And then the enablement to be able to connect with people. Those are the ones that she's really good at. So it's really fun, and for relationships and for teams, it's a fun tool to go through.
Yes, Dee Dee is an amazing woman. She's, I hear ET talk about her, and how she gets on him sometimes. I'm like, she's so soft spoken, but you can tell when she speaks, she means business.
Yeah.
Beautiful spirit, beautiful woman. And Sarah, like I said, I've met because I've listened to a couple of episodes of your podcast, Lead with Coffee, and she sounds like an amazing person. So I can't wait to meet Sarah in person. But tell me about the podcast. So how did you guys decide to come up with the name for this podcast? Because I had to work to get my cup of coffee before we started.
Oh, it's a wonderful story. So in February of 2020, let me go back. In I think it was the summer of 2019, we were on the island of Kona, and we had gone there because we love coffee and we wanted to do some tours of coffee farms. And so we spent a couple of days just going coffee farm to coffee farm. And then we were sitting on the beach one afternoon. And, one of the things that I had wanted to do a podcast. I wanted to do something on leadership because, at that point in 2019, it was something so strong in our hearts that, we've learned all this stuff. Now let's share it in, from our experience and how we want to teach as leaders. And so we kept going back and forth. We're like, we went up with a bunch of names, but we had just gotten back from a coffee farm. We're like, how about Lead with Coffee? And so we started Coffee Talk Tuesdays, which I still do to this day. There was one that launched out this week, was just a short little, clip of a couple minutes of some sort of tip on leadership or how to treat people or something like that. So we launched that then, but had no idea how to do a podcast. It was just so far out there of, someday we'll do that, but we can do a quick video. And then fast forward to February 2020, we were at a conference called Dream Big. And this is something that Bob Goff puts together. And it was in San Diego. So we sat there for a couple days with him and Jamie Kern-Lima and Miles Atkins and just these other wonderful leaders. What are their names? The husband and wife from Duck Dynasty were in the room that day at this event. And just a great event. And they said, by the time we're done with this on the second day, we're going to go around the room and you got to say what your big dream is. And for Sarah's, it was the barn, which is a gathering place. And right now it's a flower farm. And that's a whole other story that we have at the barn in San Diego. But for mine was to start a podcast. So I'm like, all right, let's start a podcast. And so when it was my time to speak, I said, I want to start a podcast. And Bob, I want you to be one of our guests. I'm like, if I get Bob Goff on my podcast, I'm already starting out strong. And so he's like, great, let's do it. Well, nice. Again, February of 2020, about 4 weeks later, the world shut down.
Yes.
So, we closed our office. We were all just working online. Everyone was working from home. And I'm like, well, we got time on our hand. It's time to learn how to do a podcast. And so I started watching YouTube videos on what equipment do I need? How do I launch this thing? And Pat Flynn is a great guy, a great resource. That's all he would do. He would teach on how to create a podcast, what software, what hardware, all the different things. So I learned all that, got on Amazon, and within a couple of weeks, we had all the equipment, pretty generic at the time. But we launched our first podcast by the end of March in 2020. And just started chatting we were at our dining room table at the time with headphones on and some old microphones and just went for it. And those first several, there was no video, it was just all audio. But I think within the first 15 episodes, we had Bob Goff on, which was a lot of fun. And we've had some great other guests. And that was continuous, not necessarily weekly, but we started recording and we got to 100 episodes in 2023. But a lot of great content. So 3 years, just consistent, good content. And as I mentioned before we started, that I've gone back and started re-listening to some of those, like, oh my gosh, there's so many good tidbits in here, just start sharing back out and start resharing the entire podcast and clips of it, because of the content and the people that we interviewed is so relevant today. I'd say we're out of COVID, but there were a lot of things that we were working on before COVID and through COVID that are still relevant today. So that's where we're at. That's how it started. And it's been a lot of fun. And I still have all the equipment, and we're going to start relaunching these probably, by the end of this year.
Well, look, by the time I get to episode 100, maybe I'll be ready for that new one, because there's some great stuff. It's like I just kept listening to them when I was driving, like, oh, these are so good. So just even the topic, that Sarah, that she has on there just about leadership and her just talking about her journey is really, really good. And you said, so people can find this on Apple or on Spotify, and it's called Lead with Coffee Leadership Podcast.
Yeah. And, you can also go to leadwithcoffee.com.
Okay. Leadwithcoffee.com. And now you talked about the Tuesday talks. What is that one called again?
Coffee Talk Tuesday. And so I record those once a week, and our son edits them, puts them all together. And so you can find those on my personal LinkedIn page and or profile. And then they're on Instagram, they're on TikTok, they're on YouTube. They're all over the place. We're trying to spread that out. And again, 1 to 3 minutes of just quick tip for the day or an encouragement. What I want to do, I want to encourage people with just one little tip that either came from the mastermind or something else I heard that will help brighten someone's day and, maybe help them with the rest of their week.
Now, your son, how old is your son?
He's 19.
Man, shout out to Gen Z, because they are awesome. Look, my son's 18. So it's like, he helps me out a lot on anything I want to know, especially about my iPhone. I'm like, okay, where do I find this at? And then I'm talking and he'll show me how to record on my screen, so I don't have to ask him later. So I'm like, oh, this is great. So shout out to that Gen Z. Yes. They're amazing. Hadn't really got into the alphas yet. That's a whole nother, I think they speak a whole nother language. But
I think so too. Yes. Yeah. But it's been fun. So he's working for our business part-time, and that's part of what he's doing. I'm like, I need this social media thing. Part of our mastermind, Nikki came on one time and did a whole thing on how to use AI to boost your social media. And so I'm like, you have to sit in front of my iPad, watch this thing for an hour, and then go to Snap or ChatGPT and put a plan together. And he did. And so now we have this plan that we're following to try to put things out for not only CBSI, but also Lead with Coffee, just to be on a consistent basis. It's like, I'd rather be a contributor than a consumer. And it's easy to become a consumer on all the social media platforms. So I figured the more we can put out there, and again, it's to encourage people and help people out, whether it's, what we do in our business in the construction and relocation management or with just leadership.
Yes, and shout out to Nikki Saunders. She puts forth some amazing stuff. It's like I was on a call with I'm in a Terry Kauser's community. She's the credit expert, and Nikki was on, and she was just giving us this stuff. And look, on the episode, something happened, and she lost her mic. And she just pivoted real quick and just got back on. I think she was talking from her phone, but it was so fast. And she just finished the episode to where she was on camera, but had her phone. I'm like, she's the GOAT when it comes to AI. So if you guys don't follow Nikki Saunders, you definitely need to follow her. Look, and I'm going to give a shout out to Terry too. I'm going to her. She's at a mastermind coming up called Wealth on Water. So I'm going to be in the room with both of them at the same time. So I'm excited. This is coming up in July. So, and all of these people are under ET's tree. So he's like the trunk of the tree, which CJ talks about, and all these different branches that we have. So we don't even have to go far because of the community that we're in. And all we have to do is just lean in and just connect with the people who are right here with us in the same group. And I love it. I love being a part of this group.
Yeah, I do too. Having only been in there for 3 months now, it has changed my perspective in so many different ways. And yeah, the reach that ET has and the opportunities to get connected with people is amazing. But even the other members of the mastermind, and yesterday as we were on, they were kind of sharing. Some people have put books out there. I didn't know that, and so it's like, share those books. I want to read to get to know more people that are actually in the mastermind, because everyone's got their own journey. But together in this community, we can help each other, boost each other up, and we can also see blind spots that, hey, have you tried this? That they're there for ET and the coaches, but us as peers can also say, hey, try this, or I've done this and it didn't work, or I did this and it was awesome. And so, yeah, the community has just been a total blessing. And there's just so many great people in there, and it's comfortable. And one of the things that they always say is, this is the place to be vulnerable.
Yes.
This is the place to figure it out. So when it's out to the world, you you are, sharpened and ready. That spear is ready to launch. And so I love that about the community, because there are several things that I want to get better at. Speaking is one of them. But I see the resources there. I'm like, oh yeah, I can't get it all in the first 3 months, but I can see over time how this is really going to help me. And again, I want to be there to help the other people in there too.
So I'm going to show you this. It's like this stack over here of books under that little TEDx sign. You can see it. Those are all people that I've met since I've joined Next Level Speakers Academy and joined the UOU Mastermind Extreme Execution. So I know everybody who has written one of those books. You guys see I got ET's books up here, but I have, oh my goodness, Danielle Jarvie. I probably pronounced her last name wrong, but I have, who is that? Jessica Lundy, Carl Phillips. There's so many different people's books that I have there. So I need David Suter's book to be on that shelf too. So I know.
and to be honest, we said that every podcast can be a chapter. So we have the content already. It's just turned into the Lead with Coffee book at some point there. Yep.
Yes. And then so Melissa T is someone else who's in our community, and I'm working, she actually I spoke with her about trying to get my book out, because after one of the first conversations I had with ET, and he talked to me about, because I was kind of all over the place before I became an extreme execution coach. He talked to me about being in alignment. So my book is going to be titled Alpha Intuition after my podcast. So that's just a very little. My release date that I plan on releasing it on my birthday, 11/21. Those numbers mean something to me, and that date is significant because it is my birthday.
Awesome. I love it.
So, and if you notice on the podcast, I have 21 episodes in each season. So
I like it. Okay.
Yeah, my book is going to have 11 chapters. So like, where's that? It's just all comes together with me, just that 11/21. So it means something. Then I just explained that basically my book just talks about my journey into entrepreneurship, on how I was released from corporate, because they eliminated my position. So and there's a lot more in there, but that's just kind of like, where I start. But where I'm ending up, I'm still going. It's every day. It's a journey, and every day is something new, something different, an opportunity to, like you said, to be a producer and not a consumer.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I had the opportunity to sit next to Melissa T during the mastermind when we were in Atlanta. And so I got to get to know her a little bit better. And yeah, I love what she's doing to help women over 40 write their books.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So look, I was not there. That was May 17th. My son graduated from high school. So unfortunately that took precedence. Other than that, I would have been in the room, because people know me. They know that I pull up. I'm all over the place, everywhere. And I was not there because family comes first.
100%.
Yes. And I remember, like, when we were supposed to meet the first time, it was your son's birthday. So I'm like, oh, that's so important, right? So we definitely got to take care of that. But talk to me about the mastermind. Like, what's something that stood out to you about being in that room with so many like-minded people?
Yeah, number one, it was great to meet people in person. And yeah, I definitely missed getting to meet you. But, it's one thing to be on a Zoom screen multiple times a week. It's another thing to actually be able to have a one-on-one conversation. The Saturday event where it was the church service, and then the UOU, from the stage, and then the dinner at night was really good. But the mastermind on Sunday, where it was just a small group, more intimate group, I was blown away. They were calling it the hot seat. So ET and CJ taught for about an hour and a half, and then Moose and Brandon came on to talk more about, how do we help personally with the goals that we've created. And so we had people go up on stage and pitch their company.
Ooh.
And it turned from the hot seat to the hot stand.
Ooh, I have FOMO. I so hate I missed that.
but it was so good, because again, they're like, be as vulnerable as you can be. We are here to help you through. We understand that you have a pitch, but if the pitch ain't right, let's fix that pitch. And the only way we can help you fix that pitch is for you to pitch.
That's right.
And so we went through that. But yeah, just God, I just have to say, being in a group of people that are just humble and welcoming and want to see other people grow as they grow. And so that was big. And then Jessica and Randy Preston are the only other people in the mastermind that are in California. And talking to Randy for a while, they have the same vision. They have a property 7-acre property that they're building out to be a place to come gather and eat agritourism. And it's very in line with what Sarah and I are doing with the Barn San Diego. So it's just so cool to get to know people, and the friendships will go beyond what the mastermind is. And so just getting to know everyone. But just overall, I can already tell this. I can already tell that this is going to make me a better person. And I've already had 3 specific things that I can call out that happened that weekend that I knew why God had me there. And so that was super fun to be able to speak into people of something that God put on my heart, and then be like, yeah, that's what I needed. So really cool.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this. So I saw some of those pictures, and I've been to a lot of events, especially, a lot of conferences, masterminds. And I'm thinking, like, what is this room? I kept seeing these pictures. I didn't know that it was the room where they had the UOU team there, or that was the mastermind. I was not expecting that. I was like, so I'm definitely looking forward to the next one, because I'm definitely going to be there. That would be so exciting. But I've actually been in the hot seat with Moose and Brandon when we had the Extreme Execution Camp. And I was only there for about, it felt like 5 hours. It's probably on like 5 minutes. But it's true. You have to be vulnerable, because if you want help, you're never going to get it by hiding stuff. So and it was just so funny when Moose was like, time, I was like, whoo, finally got out of the seat, but just the things that they said to me in those 5 minutes, they helped me to think about my business differently, and how to, like ET told me, be in alignment. Because if we're all over the place and we can't explain it to other people, we're never going to grow in our business. So to have people who are actually here that know how to take you there, you have to be vulnerable and be able to share that information with them so that they can help you get from point A to point B.
Yeah, absolutely. And they remind us of that all the time. It's like, we're not just showing up every day to talk. We're showing up to figure out where our weaknesses are and how to build them up, and then where our strengths are to make them even stronger. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a wonderful group of people, and I'm just excited of what path this is going to take me down over the next couple of years.
Yes. And something else you said too. Oh, wait, now, did you meet Bridget while you were there? Did you guys share a ride together? I think did you guys go to the comedy show together or something?
No, I did meet Bridget,
okay.
But only for a second. I did not go to the comedy show that night.
Okay.
But I got to meet her on Saturday while we were in between the events. Got a chance to talk to her for just a few minutes.
Okay, so Bridget and I, Bridget and I, our birthday is on the same day. She's a few years younger than me. Our birthday is 11/21. We met through Next Level, just having a conversation. Like you talked about the people that you met that are in San Diego. So we just met, having a conversation, and realized our birthday was on the same day. And we've been connected ever since. So she is the reason why I'm in UOU, because she invited me as her +1, because she says to me, Keisha, you're everywhere. You show up all the time. And I know if I'm not there, you're going to be able to be there. Mm-hmm. So I was so happy that she was actually in the room on May 17th, because I couldn't be there that time. We kind of tag team things together, but that friendship is something to where she's my sister now. You know what I mean? It's a lifelong bond that I've created with someone from just showing up. Yeah. I'm like you. I'm looking forward to these opportunities of growth that I have every single day with these people that I meet, that just become new family members.
Absolutely. And I would say even the way I'm bringing it back to my marriage and my relationship with our sons, and then in the business of, it's just different. And not only is it giving me the tools to help hold my team to a higher level, but to explain why it matters, and how as a business, how we stand out by using different tools and just different things that we're taught. And again, being more of a humble husband, humble leader, humble father, all the things I'm trying to, and that's a lot. And in California, we're meeting at 3:00 in the morning. So I'm writing down notes. And like this morning, I re-listened to or rewatched what we did yesterday, so I could really obtain it better. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I rewatched this, because there's so many nuggets that I had missed, just because my brain isn't necessarily there. But to take these nuggets and build something off of it to bring to our team for our business, how we treat our clients, and all those things, it's been phenomenal. It's phenomenal on where this is going to take our business in the future. Yeah.
And so this is what I was going to say a minute ago. You talked about just the APOC or the church session, the spiritual session that you had at the mastermind. That's one thing that I know it was a piece that I was missing in the corporate world. Because to me, I almost felt like, you're kind of like brainwashed to not even talk about God or talk about your spiritual beliefs or anything. And so to come to a place to where it's okay for you to, and if we're going to do anything, we're going to pray before and after we start, just to make sure that God is always in the room wherever we are. And I love that part that's the best thing about the community for me, is that we know that it's rooted in faith and it's a spiritual setting.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the first things, like I said, when I was turned on to ET back in 2020, it was like, oh, he can speak like this. He relates like this, and he's faith-based. Ooh, there's something about this and that's what the attraction was, is like, okay, that foundation that is so important to me, that's how they're starting. It's on. Yeah.
Yes. So I want to ask you about not only the upcoming projects and events that you have, but I want you to flex real quick. What are some of the projects that you've built in San Diego or managed?
Yeah, you know what? We've had opportunity to be involved in a lot of exciting projects, and I go back and look, and the stuff we're working on right now are some of the largest projects that are going on in San Diego, whether that be through school bond programs or the airport itself here in San Diego. But in the past, this community college that I talked about, literally we doubled the square footage of this campus. Over the 10-year period. It was the little baby sister campus to the bigger campus. And, we went from, 250,000 square feet to 500,000 square feet of educational space. And that's always been something that has been important to us, because literally we're in charge of building buildings where decades worth of students are going to come through there, whether they're just out of high school or going back to get their degree or learn something. And for this one, it had an automotive program and it had a horticultural program. So to be able to build buildings and spaces that people for decades are going to come through to get educated and, become better in the world and in their own journeys has been huge. So that's a big deal to me. And then some of the other projects, again, right now we're working at the airport. San Diego International is almost doubling in size as far as their terminal space. And so we're helping that new terminal come online, which is going to happen later this year. One of the biggest projects in San Diego right now. So that's super exciting. And then the school districts, they're big because of the bond money that's flowing through these school campuses to rejuvenate them, revitalize them, because a lot of them were all built in the 1960s and they still look like the 1960s. And so we're being part of multiple elementary schools and middle schools to bring them phased out little by little to modernize them. And again, it's a place where these students are going to go through, 5-6 years of their life as they become, as they grow up. So the education part has been super exciting. And we do a lot of that. And we've done corporations. We do, we're doing one of the largest electrical vehicle charging projects for a fleet for a water district right now in San Diego. And so that's super exciting. This water district it's all being grant funded, and they're doing something that no one else is doing right now as far as this big of a project. And we've been involved from the beginning with the design all the way through completion. So we're about 30% into construction right now. Lots of conduit, lots of trenching, lots of electrical. You can relate.
Yes, looking at when I was a Western Region Property Facilities Manager for FedEx Express, San Diego was in my region, so I'm very familiar with that airport and all of the different things that you have to go through in order just to get something erected on that facility. So there's a lot that goes into dealing with all of the different things that you have to work with just to try to get your project started. And then you're talking about the EV side of it. Yeah, that's really huge, especially in California, dealing with just the energy realm of it, because there's so much out there, power consumption. So I'm very familiar. That's you're doing a lot.
It's great. God is so good. He's just really blessed us with opportunities that I have to. I've been doing this for 30 years, and so I've had opportunities to do some really substantial projects. And Sarah has to remind me of, like, look at what we're doing. To us, it's a project. We know the steps how to manage a project well. And most of these projects I'm talking about, it's the relocation side, moving people into a new facility or out of a facility or seeing facilities. And then the construction management is a little bit different. But we've done so many that I really have to step back and, like, look at what we're doing. We know the process how to do this, but look at the opportunities. And we were able to be part of Snapdragon Stadium, which was San Diego State University's new stadium that they built for 35,000 people. We were part of that project. And it's like, God is so good, because several of these, the airport project and that project, were a cold call phone call to us. Hey, do you think you can do this? And it's like, oh yeah, we can do this. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's amazing. That is amazing. And the fact that, I'm gonna tell you, the beautiful thing is that you have your sons in this. And so it's a legacy that you're building, to just take this forward, and it's faith-based, and you're doing this, just a phenomenal. And I know we haven't even touched on IFMA and just how you interact with outside of work for you. You told me that you used to be the president for the San Diego chapter. And I believe you told me that you spoke at the last conference that they had.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, wow, David. I've never been to the conference. I plan on going, like I say, this coming year. That's one of my goals that I have, because I want to be in that room, because just to hear powerful people like you speak.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. And speaking was always something that was difficult. And one of my goals as I worked my way up into presidency for the San Diego chapter was because I knew I was going to have to speak in front of at least 100 people every month. And I was so nervous, sweating the whole 9 yards. But it was doing that for 2 years that really got me comfortable. Like now, I don't care how many people are in the room. I'll get up and I'll speak. Still be nervous, all those things. 100%, but I'll do it. And I have the confidence that as long as, and what I've learned is, as long as you know what you're talking about, it comes out easy.
There you
right?
go.
If you're an expert in electrical, whatever the case may be, it's easy to speak about it. You're speaking stuff that you already know in your life. And so that's kind of how I look at it now. When I'm speaking, it's because I'm speaking about something that I know about.
That's good. I just did a talk in Charlotte this past week, and I felt the same way. I didn't really have a speech prepared before I got there. I actually wrote it on the way, and I was had full intention of holding my phone in my hand, reading from my phone. I had my phone up there, but I didn't even look at it, because like you said, I just knew it, and it just flowed. And I didn't want to take the time. I probably would have thrown myself off had I looked at my notes. And I just said, you know what, I'm just going to speak from the heart. And sometimes that's the most important, because people can see the authenticity in you when you do that. And that's one thing that I'm learning in this space as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And next level speakers, yeah, it's probably down the road for me at some point to get to that next level. But for now, yeah, that's kind of been my journey of, I'm going to be uncomfortable. That's right. But that's just part of the journey, right? That's how I'm going to get better. That's how I'm going to grow. And that's one of my encouragements on my Coffee Talk Tuesdays is, like, embrace the discomfort, because that discomfort is going to help you grow.
So I'm going to ask you this. So what's next for you, David? Have you ever thought about doing a TED Talk, or have you done a TED Talk?
I have not done a TED Talk. I've not really thought about it, but you never know. The opportunity comes up. Why not, right?
Yeah, that's something that's on my list. Look, let me tell you this. I don't like being on stage. I'll do workshops all day long, but I force myself, because I want to get over that anxiety that I get, when I'm forced to, when I'm forcing myself. Like you said, after a while, it just becomes second nature. If you've done talks where over 100 people in a room, you're already there. Because it's like, I'm waiting to get to that moment. I've probably done, my max is probably about 75. So just to grow to that next thing, and to where I can get in front of people and not really be nervous. But what I'm learning, like I said, it's just all about just speaking your truth and not being worried about remembering what you have to say. I think CJ says you want to be prepared, but not rehearsed. So you just have to just be prepared in what you're speaking about, and knowing that you're the expert. And I have to keep reminding myself, they don't know my story like I know my story. And that's the biggest thing. So I just recently signed up for a TEDx talk. Still waiting to hear back whether I'm selected, but I'm like, that's why I got my little reminder up there on my shelf. That's one of my goals too. But I want to ask you, so what's next for you? What's some of the things that you have coming up in your next season?
So a couple of things with the mastermind, it's going to lead in a few different directions, but really, and this is also what I've learned over this last few months is Sarah and I on a daily basis, we're in the grind. We want to see this business grow and scale. And it's not going to happen while we're grinding the way we're grinding on a daily basis. This is a season we're going with, but when I came into the mastermind, it was like, we need to hire that high level person that can walk into a boardroom and walk into the field and be able to talk to both groups and be confident and lead at the level we lead at. And my perspective has changed. Is like, I have a team that I need to build up. And one of the things that was said in Atlanta was duplicate before you delegate. So this next season, these next few months is going to be duplicating my effort of why when I walk into a room on a project or onto a project site, the things that I see, and have my team with me, to point out the things that I see, ask them questions to start building them up. So this year is going to be duplication of how I get my team to look at the same high level that I look at, and let the company scale that way, instead of thinking that we can just bring someone in from the outside that can replace the things that we do. So that's really big. And, honestly, Sarah and I, we do want to be able to travel a little bit more. We want to be able to buy some properties. So, I'll be joining the 9 to 5. That piece probably next year. But those are the things that, we want to scale the business, not outrageously, but we want to scale the business. We want to see it successfully running. But there's also other things we want to do, like real estate investing and the bar in San Diego. Sarah's event space that we eventually have. But that's what this next couple of years looks like.
Yeah, shout out to Jamal King, the 9 to 5 millionaire. He's already got the blueprint out there for you to learn how to do it and grow at the same time. So that's amazing. That's awesome. And then you talked about something. It made me think about just what you're speaking about is just the backbone of leadership. So I'm going to shout out to LDH because I know that's the name of his book, The Backbone of Leadership. With all these different people that we have that are around us, it's like, if you want to be great at something, find somebody else that's already great at it and make them your mentor. And we have a lot of great people in this community.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
All right, David. So my last question that I have for you, I asked all of my guests this. The name of the show is called Alpha Intuition. When you hear that name, Alpha Intuition, what does it mean to you?
When I hear Alpha, I think of the top, the leader, the Alpha, the Omega. So a couple things. It could be God, or it could be your presence. Like, I want to be the Alpha as far as the leader. And then intuition, there's a difference between being I'm the leader, and the intuition of how do I connect with the people. So that's kind of how I see it. And I'm thinking of what E.T. always talks about between the lion and the African wild dogs, where there's the said to be alpha king, king of the jungle, but then there's the intuition of the smart group that work together to be able to get their goals, and their win rate is much higher. So that's what came to me.
I love it. That's amazing. That's when I hear stuff like that, it just makes me so proud that I chose this name for my podcast. I love it. All right. Well, David, I want you to tell me how people can find you on all of your social medias. And I know I have them scrolling across the screen, but just for people who are just listening, can you just tell them where to find you?
Yeah, our business is cbsisandiego.com. Our podcast is leadwithcoffee.com. And as far as on LinkedIn, you find me at David Suter. And we have a page on LinkedIn too for CBSI. And then Instagram, Facebook, it's my first and last name on most of them, or D Suter. But really the website is probably the fastest pace to get a hot link to all the social media platforms. So that's me.
All right. Well, David, I just want to say thank you so very much for joining me today. This has been an amazing talk. I am so thrilled, so excited. I can see the future for you is so bright. And I can't wait to meet Sarah. So I'm definitely either going to have both of you guys back on, or I need to just have Sarah on so we can go ahead and have that girl to girl construction conversation. And we're definitely going to have us some coffee when we do it. And then, when you guys decide to start that podcast back up, Bleed with Coffee, definitely, I would love to be a guest on your podcast as well. So
absolutely.
Yes. All right, Alpha Intuition family, that is it for today. I want to thank you guys for joining me so you can get this good information and learn how to lead with leadership in the field. So these are leadership lessons that we've learned. And if you guys have any comments, thoughts, or suggestions, please leave them down for me. I like hearing from you guys. It's always an honor and a pleasure just to connect with so many people. If this is your first time watching, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you can get notified when we release new episodes, which is typically every Saturday morning at 6 a.m. Central Time, not Pacific, not Eastern, Central Time, because y'all know I'm not getting up that early. But you guys already know it. I love you guys totally. But make sure that you do two things for me. You keep that energy and you stay tuned till next week. Peace.